This is a short video about Chapter 6 of Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Chapter 6 is called Synergize. What is synergy? To answer that, imagine you are looking out at Tokyo and you're on the outskirts of the city. You can see the tall skyscrapers, you can see the lights, you can hear lots of the traffic whizzing around the city, and you ask yourself, where is the economy? The economy really is the synergy of all of the different inhabitants of Tokyo, of the organizations that they find themselves in, the corporations, the different public services, the homes where families live together. The synergy is the combined efforts of people. It's really when the total or the output or the product is greater than the sum of the individual parts. So there's something about the relationships between people or between parts. You can also describe the synergy that occurs within non-living systems, is when the forces or the interactions between the objects are important, and they produce results which are greater than what might be predicted by looking at the system as merely independent nuts and bolts. So for example, if you think about teams that you work in, effective teams are diverse. They have a number of different individuals with different functions, different roles, different skill sets, different personalities, and they perform a particular role within an organization. Can be any organization, could be a small estate agent firm where one person has developed specialist skills in producing advertisements, in creating brochures for particular properties. Another person in an estate agent company could be responsible for showing prospective buyers around the properties and maybe has knowledge of the local area. Somebody else might be involved in the financial side of things. Okay, this is just an example of an organization, in this case a particular company, in which individuals work together so that their combined efforts, the results of their combined efforts is greater than what they could achieve as an individual. Adam Smith, in his very famous book, The Wealth of Nations, said about how it's the division of labour, what you could call the specialisation of labour, that's really at the key, that's really at the heart of understanding why it is, he was writing this back in the late 18th century, why some countries were wealthy. And in that very large and excellent book, he spoke about how, well, he gave the example of a pin factory. And in this particular pin factory, he said how if one individual were trying to produce pins, and there's maybe 8 or 9 different stages involved in making a pin, they would have to they would have to get the raw ingredient. Maybe let's say it's a copper pin. They would have to extract the copper from the ore. That might require smelting. There would be a process by which the raw material would need to be purified before it could start to be melded and put into a particular shape. And then there would be a number of other processes, a number of other parts of the process. The pins would need to be cut to a particular length, they would need to be given a particular shape, they would need to have maybe a hole bored through them so that they could function as pins. And then there would be packaging, and then in order to sell the pins, there would be a process of advertisement as well. So if one individual was performing all of these different tasks, him or herself, perhaps they could maybe produce 2 or 3 pins in one day. But Adam Smith observed that within companies, if they have maybe 8 individuals all performing just one task, one activity, they've divided those tasks into separate stages, and each part of the process, each person has got really good at their particular thing. The number of pins that could be produced by the factory as a whole is many orders of magnitude greater. And so it's the synergy between people, it's how they're combining their efforts, it's the interactions and the relationships between people who have different skill sets, different talents. It's the combination of those different skills which leads to the synergy, which leads to much greater output. It's perhaps analogous to thinking about a symphony. A symphony really is the synergy of an orchestra. So a great symphony, perhaps Beethoven's Ninth is a good example. If you think about all of the different instruments, all of the different parts that Beethoven wrote, you know, he wrote parts for the cello, the violins, the French horns, of course soprano, alto, tenor and bass, as well as the large chorus, the large choir sitting at the back of the large ensemble. Each individual part by itself is not perhaps particularly interesting. Beethoven is a great composer, and so actually the individual parts would be quite interesting. But the magic really occurs when all of those instruments come together and combine and are synchronized. They're playing in time together, and they're harmonizing with one another. There's a beautiful moment in the Ninth Symphony when you get the 4-part harmony produced by the soloists. And if you haven't heard the Ninth Symphony, it's the famous Ode to Joy. Well, the 4th movement contains the Ode to Joy chorus. But there's just a beautiful moment. There's a great performance conducted by Daniel Barenboim on YouTube, actually, that you can check out. And when the 4 singers stand up and they sing in their individual parts, the magic that occurs in those 4 harmony parts being sung simultaneously is just incredible, and it's a profound experience when you hear the whole thing being performed and coordinated and synchronized and all moving in harmony with one another. It's simply the case that the sum, the music that comes out of that giant orchestra, that giant ensemble, is greater than what would possibly be predicted by simply looking at the individual parts and adding them up in a linear way. There's sort of a magic that occurs when it comes to synergy. The same possibly can be said of consciousness. So consciousness has puzzled people, of neuroscientists and psychiatrists and psychologists, because it's a very complex question. What is consciousness? But many psychologists, psychiatrists, neuroscientists believe really it's the synergy, it's the interplay of the different parts of the brain, the different structures of the brain and the different neurotransmitters, and how they coordinate and cooperate and how they affect each other. So for example, the release of dopamine affects the receptors across the synapses. The receptors change, or they're affected by the amount of dopamine, and the other neurotransmitters are also affected by the amount of dopamine that's being secreted in a particular pathway at a particular moment at a particular time. And this affects all other parts of the brain. But what we have in terms of consciousness, our understanding of the world, our experience, our sense of self, when we look out, we see a beautiful field. In this particular case, I'm in the park right now, hearing the birds and watching the deer. This experience is rather like the music of the Ninth Symphony. It's the coming together of all of the different parts, all of the perceptive apparatus, the 5 senses, and an incredible amount of coordination that's occurring in the brain. and this is happening all of the time. And so once again, this is another example of synergy. And what Stephen Covey is really getting at the book, he says that synergy really is a culmination of all of the other habits. It's kind of like the apex or the pinnacle. If you take care of the first 5 habits, synergy is really the crown jewel, as it were. And what he is getting at is working with others to try to benefit and take advantage of the fact that people know things that you don't know. They have skills that you don't have, and that they have different perception, different opinions. And many people can sometimes see differences as being potential conflict. But one thing that Stephen Covey is really trying to get at in the book is to seek disagreements almost, because in there's opportunities to learn things, try to gain a better, more richer, more detailed, more diverse understanding of how the world works, and learning from the experiences of others, and working in teams, trying to think about how what you're trying to achieve as a group, what the whole is trying to achieve, can be improved upon if the relationships are more synergistic, if they are building on each other's efforts, and there is a mutually reinforcing, constructive interaction taking place, one that benefits all members. This is an optimal situation, very hard to achieve in real life, because of course there's going to be dissonance, there's going to be disharmony, and sometimes it can be difficult for large complex organisations to synchronise and be all on the same page, because quite naturally disagreements will occur. But the point about this chapter is to try to think about building relationships where you're helping another person, because you can do things that other people can't. You might have knowledge they simply don't have, and vice versa. And it's kind of building on the win-win framework that he gave in habit number 5, thinking about how you can have mutually beneficial relationships around you, and encourage others, give people energy and support. And so it's a really useful habit that can apply to most people, because we all work in groups to a certain extent. No man or no woman is an island. We all have families, we all have networks, workplaces, and we can all be much more successful, much wealthier, much more happy, if we're able to recognise, utilise and complement the different and diverse ways of viewing the world and skills that people bring. So I just wanted to share this video with you today. I'll show you the book once more. If you haven't had a chance to check out the book, it's well worth it. In the next video I will review the final chapter, chapter 7, Sharpen the Saw. But that's all for now. Thank you very much.